Hello, everybody. So, I know it's been a while since we have done a Spooky Saturday, but today I have something a little bit different. We're not doing a couple ghost stories, little short ghost stories. Today, we are going to spend this episode talking about one story in particular, the Amityville Horror House. Now, you've probably heard this story, or perhaps seen the original 1979 film based upon the paranormal hauntings in 1975, and the horrifying murder that took only a year prior. But, of course, as you all know by now, I have an interest for the strange and the unusual. So, let's talk about the murder and paranormal events that took place in the mid-70s and find, are the hauntings an echo of the 1974 murder, or just an elaborate hoax that amassed into a well-known popular film and novel? So, let's begin. Ronald DeFeo Jr., born on September 26, 1951, was convicted of the murders of his father, mother, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters on November 13, 1974. The murder of the family was said to be around 3 to 3:15 a.m. All the children got shot once, whilst the parents received 2 shots, all oddly face down besides the mother, Louise, and one of the daughters, Allison, which were supposed to be seemingly awake at the time of their death. After the killings, he got cleaned up and dressed to go about his day, like nothing ever happened. Later that same day, around 6 p.m., Robert went into a bar asking help from some of the bar patrons. Quote, "You got to help me. I think my mother and father are shot." End quote. Robert, along with a small group including his friend, Joe Yeswit, made a phone call to the police, arriving at the house only to discover that all 6 family members were lying in their beds dead. Robert was taken in by the police protection after claiming his family was shot by a mob hitman, Luis Fellini. But during the interview, there was a huge amount of inconsistencies in Robert's story, until he finally confessed the following day. Quote, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast." End quote. About a year later, his trial began on October 14, 1975. An insanity plea was claimed, as Robert said he had no memory of killing his family. It was supported by psychiatrist Daniel Schwartz. But Dr. Harold Zolan mentioned that despite Robert being a user of heroin and LSD, he had an antisocial personality disorder, and he was mentally present during the time of killings. November 21st, 1975, he was found guilty of all 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 sentences of 25 years to life on December 4th that same year. He remained in prison until his death on March 12, 2021, with the cause of death not released to the public. Now, despite all that, there have been a few controversies about the murder, starting with the fact that neither of the family members showed no signs of struggle, all face down in their beds. The police confirmed that the .35 caliber rifle did not have a sound suppressor, and there were no means of sedatives being used, despite Robert claiming in his interrogation that he did drug his family. The interviews and interrogations that have been conducted on Robert, there were countless varied accounts of how the murders took place. One of them being that him and his sister, Dawn, plotted to kill both the parents, and that Dawn also killed the young children to avoid any witnesses. This put Robert in a burning fury that led him to killing Dawn, as she was found killed in the most violent, with her head supposedly being exploded. The police did find traces of unburnt gunpowder upon Dawn's nightgown, and Robert used it as quote-unquote proof that she discharged the gun. Now, there is also, as mentioned, that he does not remember that night. But this could have been due to the intake of drugs. One account mentioned that he could have been possessed, which leads to the possibility of the house already being haunted from the start. Eventually, the house was put up for sale at a heavily dropped price due to horrific events that happened prior. Around 13 months later, the house caught the eye of one particular family, the Lutz family. Despite knowing the events that occurred the year before, they still bought the house for a bargain price of $80,000. The Lutzes moved in on December 18th, 1975, and most of the furniture of the DeFeos was still in the house, unmoved, untouched. George Lutz was never considered the murders that happened to be an issue, unknowing that there was a dark, residual energy that lingered within. Not long after entering the home, things started to occur, with one of them being their dog almost hanging himself. That was in the first hour of coming into the home. A friend of George Lutz, who learned the history of the house, insisted that he'd get it blessed as soon as possible. So George contacted a Catholic priest. He came to bless the house as the family was unpacking. There was one particular room upstairs that George and his wife Kathy were going to use as sewing room that gave the priest an unsettling experience. As he was saying a prayer and spraying holy water, he heard an eerie, masculine voice. Quote, "Get out," end quote. He was also slapped before the voice told him to leave. The priest left the home without any mention of this encounter till a few days later on the 24th in a phone call that was cut short by static. Within the first few days of living in the home, George found himself waking up around 3:15 in the morning, which was believed to be the time of when the killings took place. He would feel a sense of unease, restlessness, and hearing strange noises in the night. According to George, he started to get sick more frequently, lost a lot of weight, losing hours of work. He'd also gone through a personality change, growing more irritable, snapping at the family, arguing with Kathy. He also felt cold at the time, and he would chop wood outside to use to warm him up. Soon enough, his wife Kathy started to have experiences of her own. She felt the embrace of a woman while she was in one of the rooms, and it frightened her. There were also reports of swarms of flies inhabiting certain rooms in the dead of winter. Also, the parents were beginning to grow anxious with their daughter's, Missy's, behavior. Missy told them that she made a friend named Jody, who appeared to the child as a large pig with glowing red eyes. The paranormal occurrences grew more prevalent as the days went on. There would be screams in the night, footsteps, the children saying weird things, temperatures varying throughout the house. The family, even until the death of George and Kathy, didn't want to give the accounts of the events that took place that drove them out of the home in the early morning of January 14th, 1976, claiming it to be too frightening. Since this gained publicity in 1977, a book was made based on the paranormal events that occurred in the house, which also eventually led to a series of films from 1979 onward. The book led to so many controversies and even lawsuits since its release. With all the traction this was receiving, George and Kathy Lutz, quote, disappeared, wanting to get away from it all. But that didn't stop the rise of interest in this house. So much so that the Channel 5 News in New York contacted well-renowned demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren. When the Channel 5 News team arrived, they began to behave strangely. The cameraman reached steps on top of the second floor, bent over, clutching his chest. Lorraine felt an overwhelming sadness throughout the house. During their investigation, there was a series of time-lapse infrared photos taken, and one of them had an image of a young boy standing at the foot of the staircase upon the second floor. It was not made public domain until 1979. With these controversies on whether this was true or blown way out of proportion, some have entered said house. Even those who live here to this day have not experienced anything really out of the norm. And why could that be? Some simply don't believe in the paranormal. Some believe this to be an elaborate hoax. Was Let's family so easily affected by this paranormal? The paranormal can affect everyone differently, or not at all, whether if it's true or not. Even if it is true, it could have been fabricated to make it something more horrifying. Or since the murder of the previous family was so fresh, only a year before, there could have been a strong residual energy that they were experiencing and affected them so much. As a believer of the paranormal myself, I truly do find it so fascinating. But what really happened on the night that made the family just leave, and leaving all their belongings behind? This is something I would love to know, but I don't think we will ever know what really, truly happened that night. But I do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was a different kind of video. Now, whether you guys believe in the paranormal or not, that is entirely up to you. But what is for certain, an awful murder did happen in that house, with surely some kind of residual energy. And some people may be affected by it, some maybe not. Like I said, the paranormal affects everybody differently, and sometimes it could not affect them at all. Some just don't believe in it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was, like I said, it was a little different, especially since I did the voiceover first, and then do the video and visuals and editing afterwards. So that's completely new to me. I've never done anything like that before. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed. And let me know your thoughts. What do you think happened? Do you think this is just some elaborate hoax? Do you think that something really did happen in that house? Or maybe it's something did happen, but it's not as out there as it was made out to be in the book. So let me know. And if you want to see more videos like this, where I talk about any kind of, spooky, weird, and strange events, or if you want to see gameplay, if you prefer that instead, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, that's it. And I will see you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed. Bye-bye.